Hello and welcome to On the Couch with Clare. I am your host, Clare Rowe. This is the very first episode, and I want to start by thanking you for taking the time right now to listen. You might be in the car or out for a walk or dropping off the kids. And you know what? Our time is our most valuable, non-renewable resource. So I really appreciate that you have chose to spend a bit of it with me. I do want to dive into a topic that's personal to me and I believe important to all of us. And that's the idea that waiting for perfection can actually paralyze us and stop us from achieving our goals. So I'm talking about the idea of taking action before you're ready and before everything is perfect. Now, I want to start by sharing a bit of my own story. You see, this podcast you're listening to right now almost didn't happen. And for years, I just had this idea in my head and I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to have great conversations with people I admired, conversations about mental health and parenting. And you know what? I just kept waiting and waiting. And I don't know, I was waiting for this perfect moment or until I had the perfect equipment or the perfect plan or the ideal guest. And you know what? That moment just never came. So let's talk about why this happens from a behavioural and neurological standpoint. Our brains are wired to seek safety and avoid risk at all costs. The unknown to our brain is scary, and taking action without a guarantee of success is a risk. And we know that neuroscience shows us that when we anticipate something might go wrong, our amygdala, the fear center of our brain there, it lights up like a Christmas tree. And this response is deeply rooted in our evolution. Back in the caveman days, it kept us safe from predators. But today, what happens is it just keeps us stuck in this loop of inaction. And I think what happened with me is that perfectionism then just became the comfortable excuse. And I was waiting until everything was perfect. And then I guess I just never had to face that fear of failure or that the podcast wasn't going to be exactly as I thought it would be. But here's the kicker: perfectionism is the enemy of productivity. It stops us from even starting. So, how did I overcome this? And I have finally launched my goal, my podcast, On the Couch with Clare. I realized something crucial. You do not need to have everything figured out just to start. What you do need is the willingness to take that very first step, even if it is imperfect. And I decided that my message and the conversations I wanted to have, and hell, the fun that I would have interviewing people was way more important than waiting for the perfect moment. And look, once I started, I did learn, and hopefully I have improved along the way. But here's what behavioral science tells us: taking action, even the smallest steps, creates momentum. It's known as the progress principle. So when we see progress, our brains release dopamine, that feel good neurotransmitter. And that is what makes us want to keep going. And now we're in a positive feedback loop. Now let's get practical. I want to give you 3 takeaways to help you take that leap of faith like I did and just start those projects that you've been thinking about. Okay, so number 1, you need to embrace imperfection. And you're going to have to understand that your first attempt does not have to be perfect. In fact, you know what? It's not going to be. In 10 years from now, I'm going to hear this and it's going to be cringy and terrible, but that's okay. The goal is to start and then look at each step as a learning opportunity. Number 2, I really hate goal setting. I think it's really cliched and over talked about, but you do need to break tasks down into really small, little actionable steps. If you can just wake up each morning and think, what is one tiny thing I can do today to just nudge me towards achieving my goal? You know what? That might just be like a Google search of the equipment that you're going to need, or a class that you're going to need to upskill in, or someone that can help you. And number 3, you're going to need to reframe failure because it's going to happen. and shift your mindset from fearing failure just to realize that it's an inevitable part of life. And each setback is a lesson, and it's not a verdict on your abilities. So, to all of you listening, I want you to think about a project you've been putting off. What would happen if you just started today? What small step can you take right now? Because trust me, waiting for perfection is just another form of procrastination. So I did take this leap with this podcast, and it's been incredible. I've had so much fun. And I know you can take that leap too. And I want you to go out and just start before you're ready. Thank you so much for joining me today. The very first episode of On the Couch with Claire. If you found this episode helpful, please go ahead and share it with someone who might need that extra push. I can't wait for you to join us in the other episodes where we bring on amazing experts and have great conversations. Until next time, take care and stay curious. Okay, for those who've made it this far, just remember, even though I am actually a registered and qualified psychologist, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional individual advice.